Hello.
Where?
The
Law.
We've been around for centuries, standing tall, claiming to be fair, objective, and neutral.
But some relentless critiques from the critical legal studies movement have pointed out that we've been more of a, how should we put this?
we have come to understand that our promises have fallen short. In fact, we have been complicit in upholding power structures, acting inconsistently, and providing false hopes of neutrality and fairness.
We've slowly come to realize that our legacy is not one of impartial justice, but rather it is steeped in politics, inequality, and our hidden biases.
And we think it's time to come clean. We don't expect to be forgiven, but to everyone we've let down. This is our apology.
First off, we think we have to address the elephant in the room. Neutrality, the biggest misconception that we've been putting. We've always marketed ourselves as above the fray, perfectly neutral, like Switzerland with a gavel. But Duncan Kennedy, he's been saying it for years, called us out, saying our neutrality is just politics in disguise. And honestly, he's right. We've been making calls that serve the powerful while saying, hey, it's not us, it's just the law. And, well, it is us. We've been playing favorites, hiding behind rules that aren't as impartial as we'd like you to think. Critical legal studies showed that my neutral principles have actually ended up being tools for reinforcing the status quo, favoring those in positions of power and leaving the marginalized to fend for themselves. When I claimed to be above politics, it was simply a way of concealing the fact that I am and always have been inherently political. It is something that we are not proud of. We've always used to think that we will fly high forever, but it is now that we realize that we've fallen short of our duties to some, which to us means that we've failed everyone. This critique, it stings because it's true. We often decided in favor of those with influence, wealth, status, even as we offered rights and protections to all. We guess our scales were never truly balanced. We see now that claiming objectivity has allowed us to operate without being questioned, masking the selective nature of our protection. So turns out we're about as neutral as a referee who owes the home team a favor. Our bad.
Next, let's talk about something Mark Tushnet called us out on: indeterminacy. Basically, Tushnet said we're a bit flexible when it comes to applying our principles. Look, we've tried to be consistent, but apparently we're as consistent as a weather forecast in April. Tushnet showed that our doctrines are so open to interpretation, you might as well drive a truck through them. Or, get an unjust ruling if it suits the right people. We've been letting powerful folks twist our words to get the outcomes that they want. Tushnet even suggested we're more like a script that anyone can rewrite as long as they have the right kind of influence. How can we claim to provide stable and reliable justice when we are so prone to fluctuating interpretations? The truth is, legal doctrines are open to countless interpretations, and this indeterminacy has allowed us to hide behind ambiguities. When judges interpret the law, they are not only guided by legal principle, but also by their own personal biases, by external pressures, and even social political influences. This simply isn't an accidental inconsistency, it's built into our very structure. Rushnet's hypothetical determinile measure, an imagined metric for determining how fixed we are, demonstrates that no matter how many principles we claim to follow, our outcomes will always be unpredictable and influenced by factors that are beyond strict legal reasoning. Let's just say, if you thought we're the rock solid foundation of justice, you might want to look for a sturdier rock. It is something we can never be proud of, or we should have never just let this happen in the first place. Not a day goes by since these critiques came up that we don't feel disappointed of what we've become.
Rights. We thought they were our gift to you all, like a legal happy meal with equal portions for everyone. But Peter Gabel, bless his heart, argued that our rights-based approach alienates people from each other. Instead of fostering a sense of shared community and collective well-being that we wanted, we've fostered an individualistic approach that pulls people apart. Rights as we've presented them often provide only superficial protections, tokens of equality, that conceal the reality of enduring social hierarchies. Gabel argued that we've been throwing around rights like party favors, making everyone think they're equally protected, but the truth? Rights are just fancy words if you can't afford to enforce them. And Patricia Williams, too, she offered a sobering perspective. To communities of color and marginalized groups, rights are not merely abstract principles. They are crucial tools for survival. Williams demonstrated that my selective application of rights is more than just a failing, it's a betrayal. To promise equal rights while subtly ensuring they remain out of reach for many is worse than no promise at all. Williams and others in the critical race theory camp remind me that rights must be meaningful and accessible, or else they only enforce existing inequalities. So, yeah, we guess rights have been more than like coupons, like great if you're already in the store, but they don't help you much if you're locked out. This is something which hit us hard. We intended rights to create a sense of safe community, and to see them fail at achieving this was something which was too hard for us to come to terms with. Maybe this is why we did not face this reality for so long. We were simply afraid.
And now let's talk about rights again, but this time from a reality check by Richard Delgado. Delgado, a prominent voice in critical race theory, had some strong words about how we, and even some CLS scholars, misunderstand the real value of rights, especially for minority communities. According to Delgado, rights may seem abstract or ineffective to CLS theorists sitting in comfortable offices, but for communities of color rights are more than theory. They are practical tools that offer protection, even if limited. Delgado argues that right can at least sometimes restrain those who might otherwise act on racist or oppressive impulses. He says it's condescending and misguided to assume that the so-called paralyzing effect of rights only impact the oppressed. In reality, rights can also make those in power think twice. Without rights, Delgado reminds us minorities could face unchecked discrimination. And Delgado did not hold back when he pointed out that CLS scholars, many from privileged backgrounds, don't always see the security that rights provide to marginalized communities. For these communities, rights aren't just legal abstractions, they are safety nets. Delgado called out the disconnect, saying rights offer real support for those who aren't always treated with respect and deference. So to Delgado and to those communities, we hear you. Maybe we were too quick to write off rights as merely individualistic and alienating. For many, they are life vest, imperfect but necessary. Even though Delgado was a critique of CLS, he still provided us with valuable commentary with respect to many issues which have come to light about us. For that, as we have said before and we will say many times after, we are sorry.
As critical legal studies has pointed out, we are at our core an institution born from privilege and elitism. Our early scholars and shapers were predominantly white, male, and from elite educational backgrounds. They created a system that reflected their worldview, which it naturally led to a lack of inclusivity and representation. While CLS scholars like Duncan Kennedy were critical of this elitism, they too often found themselves caught within the same structures they critiqued. This elitism limited the impact of critical legal studies at the moment, and perhaps it has hindered us as well. Our doctrines, our language, our framework, our very framework, they are all products of a narrow social perspective, one that has often excluded women, people of color, and marginalized groups from having a meaningful voice within our structure. Our downfall lies in the fact that we have rarely represented or understood the perspectives of those who stand outside our narrow boundaries. Finally, let's also talk about our future. Roberto Unger and Loic Vacanth, two scholars in CLS, have been debating about how we should operate from here on. Unger says we need to be radically reformed, basically flipped on our head, rebuilt from scratch to actually support the social justice. But Vacanth, well, he wasn't so optimistic. He said critical legal studies was too focused on critique and too light on the solutions. And honestly, well, we think he's right. But then again, we didn't make it easy for them to come up with the alternatives. Look, we know we are a mess. We might need therapy, maybe a complete renovation, or if Vacanth's in charge, a total demolition. But Unger had a point. We could be useful if we actually stopped justifying inequality and started leveling the playing field. So we guess the question is, are we worth fixing or are we just beyond repair? That's where we need your help.
To the thinkers of CLS, Duncan Kennedy, Mark Tushnet, Peter Gable, Patricia Williams, Richard Delgado, Robert Unger, Louis Horkheimer, thank you. You've been the tough love we needed to face our flaws.
And to everyone else, keep pushing us. Hold us accountable. We've got a long way to go, but maybe, just maybe, with enough work, we can finally live up to the promises that we made.
To truly serve the people, we must abandon our elitist origins, shed our rigid doctrines, and transform into a system that is adaptable, inclusive, and genuinely just.
But this cannot happen overnight. It will require the participation and critique of those we have failed. Feminists, racial minorities, queer theorists, socio-legal scholars, to reshape us into something that embodies justice for all, not just in theory, but in reality.